What if I told you that every love story you've ever fallen for is a lie? That the butterflies in your stomach, the obsessive thoughts, the fantasy of finding your soulmate, all of it is nothing more than a magnificent, cruel biological trick. Over the next few minutes, you're going to discover why true love, the way we dream about it, is an illusion. And this isn't just some cynical hot take. This is a cold, hard truth, backed by one of the most ruthless and brilliant minds in history, Arthur Schopenhauer. By the time we're done, you won't just see love differently. You will see the entire human species in a new, unflinching light. Picture it. You're standing across from someone. Your heart is hammering against your ribs, your palms are sweating, and your mind is just spinning, drunk on fantasies of a future together. You call that feeling love. Schopenhauer would call it a delusion, because here's the brutal truth he laid bare almost 200 years ago. Love isn't some cosmic connection. It isn't destiny. It isn't even really about them. Love, at its very core, is a biological con job. Schopenhauer saw it with horrifying clarity. We don't fall in love with a person's soul. We fall in love with what their genetics represent for the survival of the species. Let me give you a historical example that proves just how fragile this feeling is. In 18th century France, the infamous Marquis de Sade, yes, that de Sade, conducted a series of depraved social experiments. He'd lock men and women in rooms, deprive them of food, and simply watch what happened. The results were chilling. As desperation grew, as survival became the only thing that mattered, affections and loyalties shifted instantly. Love wasn't about who you connected with. It was about who could keep you alive. It was about utility. Schopenhauer argued this is always true, even when we aren't starving. He said that what we call love is simply the will to life, a blind, unconscious force of nature that tricks us into reproducing. That euphoric high you feel? That's just a cocktail of dopamine and other chemicals designed to make you obsessed. That deep-seated belief that you've found the one? That's a fairy tale we've been sold for generations to keep the human assembly line running. But this is where it gets even darker, because modern science is catching up to Schopenhauer's grim philosophy. A 2013 study out of the University of California scanned the brains of people who were madly, passionately in love. What they found should terrify you. The brain activity was virtually identical to that of a cocaine addict. Love isn't some sacred, divine gift. It's an addiction. And just like any other addiction, the high eventually fades, and the withdrawal is hell. Schopenhauer put it bluntly. After the child is born, the illusion vanishes. Just think about it. Be honest. How many couples do you know who are still truly, passionately in love after years of marriage? After the kids, the mortgage, after the sheer grind of life has worn the fantasy down to the bone? The divorce rate isn't a modern crisis. It's a predictable outcome. The passion dies because its biological purpose was never your happiness. Its purpose was the next generation. Once the job is done, the programming fades, and you're left looking at a stranger you happen to share a bathroom with. If that's not enough to convince you, let me tell you a story that will make this all too real. In 1903, a brilliant, tormented young philosopher named Otto Weininger published a book called Sex and Character, where he argued, much like Schopenhauer, that romantic love was a complete illusion. He exposed the game. He saw the truth. Then, at just 23 years old, he rented a room in the very house where his idol, Beethoven, had died, and he shot himself in the chest. His suicide note was devastatingly simple. He said he had to die because he could not stand the lie of love anymore. Weininger saw the truth that we spend our entire lives trying to ignore. The romantic love we're all chasing doesn't actually exist. And when that illusion shattered, it broke him. But here's the twist in all of this. This knowledge isn't a reason for despair. It's a reason to wake up. This is your chance to get free, Tom. Because once you see love for the biological program that it is, you stop being its slave. You stop chasing ghosts and validation. You start seeing relationships for what they can be. Not fairy tales, but conscious, clear-eyed agreements between two people who understand the game they're playing. And that, right there, is where your real power begins. So, if the fairy tale is dead, what takes its place? A marketplace. A brutal, silent auction where your heart is just another asset up for bid. When we continue, we're going to dive deep into the mechanics of this love market. You're going to learn how attraction is calculated, why you are fundamentally replaceable, and most importantly, how to use this brutal knowledge to your own advantage. This is where philosophy meets pure survival strategy. Don't look away. All right, let's talk about the love market. Imagine walking into a silent auction. The room is filled with people, but the air is thick with tension. The prize isn't a painting, a car, or a rare artifact. The prize is you. Your affection, your loyalty, your future. This isn't some dark metaphor. According to Schopenhauer, this is the reality of romance. It's a marketplace, a cold, hard exchange where biological and social value are the only currencies that matter. And if you don't understand the rules of this market, you're not a player. You're the product being sold. Let me tell you a story from 19th century Vienna that will make your skin crawl. There was a wealthy, influential aristocrat. Let's call him the Count. This man kept a secret ledger, a little black book. But it wasn't for debts or business deals. In it, he meticulously recorded every woman he ever seduced. He ranked them like livestock, based on a brutal set of metrics: their beauty, their family's social standing, and most chillingly, how much sleeping with them improved his own reputation among other men. He called it his love portfolio. For the Count, romance had nothing to do with connection. It was about acquisition. It was a game of status. Schopenhauer would have just nodded. He saw this grim reality centuries ago. Beneath all the sonnets, the whispered promises, and the grand gestures, love is a transaction. And before you dismiss this as old-world cynicism, modern science has proven him right, in excruciating detail. A 2017 study in the field of evolutionary psychology broke it down. It found that humans instinctively assess potential partners based on three brutal, unspoken metrics: resources, genetics, and compliance. Let's be blunt about what that means. Resources, what can you provide? This isn't just money. It's security, status, safety, a lifestyle. Genetics, what does your physical body signal? Health, strength, fertility, a strong jawline, clear skin. These are all advertisements for the quality of your DNA. And compliance. This one is subtle but crucial. It's how much a person is willing to sacrifice their own interests for the good of the partnership. It's not pretty, but it's the truth. Schopenhauer called this the unconscious calculus of the will. You think you choose who you're attracted to? Wrong. Your most ancient reptilian programming does the math for you in a fraction of a second. Her biology is scanning your resources. Your biology is scanning her youth and fertility signals. It's a negotiation happening on a level you're not even aware of. And here's where the mechanics get even darker. In 2008, The psychologist David Buss conducted a massive global study on infidelity and jealousy. His findings were explosive and confirmed what Schopenhauer suspected all along. Men, across all cultures, fear sexual betrayal above all else. Why? Because it triggers a deep, evolutionary fear of unknowingly investing resources into another man's genetic legacy. It's a biological scam. Women, on the other hand, fear emotional betrayal most. Why? Because an emotional connection with another woman signals a potential diversion of resources, security, protection, and commitment, which threatens her own survival and that of her offspring. This isn't about being petty or insecure. This is evolutionary accounting. Schopenhauer saw this dynamic perfectly. Man demands fidelity to ensure his bloodline. Woman demands security to ensure her survival. Both are often just lies whispered to each other to keep the transaction stable. But maybe the most terrifying proof of the love market is what we could call the black widow effect. In certain species of spiders, the female is famous for devouring the male immediately after mating. His purpose has been served. Now, humans aren't quite so literal, thank God, but the underlying principle is disturbingly similar. A 2015 study that tracked divorce rates uncovered a fascinating and uncomfortable trend. In heterosexual marriages, where the woman's career and income level suddenly and significantly surpassed her husband's, the likelihood of divorce skyrocketed. Why? Because the original deal was broken. The silent contract, negotiated unconsciously years ago, was now void. The market values had shifted dramatically, and one partner was no longer getting what they originally, implicitly, bargained for. As Schopenhauer grimly concluded, love is a contract written in invisible ink, and you only see the terms when you hold it up to the fires of change. So what's the solution to all this? Do we just give up? Do we become bitter and renounce relationships entirely? That's the loser's move. The answer is to get smarter. The men who don't just survive but actually thrive in the love market aren't the ones who pretend it doesn't exist. They're not the romantics living in a fantasy. They are the ones who master its rules. They understand that attraction isn't magic. It's a strategy. They work on their own value, their resources, their physical health, their status, but they never forget that the game is fundamentally rigged by biology. And instead of crying about it, they play with their eyes wide open. Think of it exactly like a game of chess. If you walk up to the board and you don't know how the pieces move, you're going to get destroyed, and you won't even know why. You'll just feel like a failure. But if you study the board, if you learn the openings, if you anticipate your opponent's moves, and most critically, if you never ever let them see your desperation, you might just find yourself in a position of power. But this raises the one question nobody wants to face. If love truly is a market driven by value, what happens when your value starts to decline? What happens when you're no longer the hot new commodity? This is where we have to talk about the expiration date, because there is a clock ticking inside of you, counting down your relevance. In the next part, we will confront the brutal truth about aging, becoming obsolete in the marketplace, and how the very few men who succeed manage to stay ahead of the curve. There is a clock ticking inside you. I'm not talking about the one counting down the moments until you die, although that one is running too. I'm talking about a quieter, more cruel clock. It's the one tracking your value in the love market. And unlike your heartbeat, you don't need a stethoscope to hear this one. You can hear it in the way a stranger's glance passes over you. You can feel it in the fading enthusiasm of a lover's touch. You can sense it in that slow, chilling shift from "I need you" to "I'm just used to you." Schopenhauer understood this better than anyone. He knew that love, driven by the biological imperative for youth and vitality, has a built-in shelf life. And when your expiration date comes up, you will be discarded. Let me tell you a story that will haunt you. In the 1920s, an actress named Mary Nolan was one of the brightest stars in Hollywood. Her face was on every poster. Men fought for her attention, and studios built movies around her. She was the definition of desirable. Then she hit her late 30s. The calls slowed down. The lovers vanished. The studios that once begged for her started offering her roles as mothers, then widows, and then they offered her nothing at all. By 50, she was broke. By 60, she was forgotten. Mary Nolan died alone in a small, rented room, her body undiscovered for days. From headlines to invisible, from coveted to discarded. Schopenhauer would have seen her fate as nothing but the inevitable, brutal logic of nature. Beauty, he wrote, is a currency, and like all currencies, it devalues over time and can collapse without warning. This isn't just some old Hollywood tragedy. It's a scientifically mapped reality. A 2019 study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology laid out the cold, hard numbers. It found that men, on average, peak in sexual market value around the age of 34, while women peak at 23. After that, a decline. Slow at first, then accelerating. The researchers called it the desirability cliff. Schopenhauer just called it nature's cruelty. Because here is the truth you have to swallow. The market doesn't care about your shared memories, your loyalty, or the years of your life you've invested. It only cares about what you can offer right now. And if what you offer is no longer perceived as top tier, you risk being replaced. In ancient Rome, there was a brutal tradition called the spoils of war. When a general conquered a new city, he would take the most beautiful and high-status women for himself, regardless of whether they were already married. Their husbands? They were either killed or cast aside, forgotten by history. Schopenhauer saw this not as an atrocity, but as a raw display of the natural order. The strong take, and the weak are taken from. In the modern love market, that strength isn't just physical. It's the ability to build and maintain your value long after nature wants you to become obsolete. So what's the escape hatch? How do you beat the clock? You don't. But you can outrun it. The men who survive the expiration date aren't the ones desperately clinging to their youth. They are the ones who transcend it. They build things that don't fade with age: power, wisdom, wealth, a legacy. A 50-year-old man with influence, purpose, and self-mastery is infinitely more desirable than a 25-year-old with nothing but a sharp jawline and a six-pack. Schopenhauer knew this. He wrote that the only true conquest is the conquest of the self. Because while your looks will fade, your dominance, your competence, and your character can grow. Think of the legendary seducer Casanova. By his 40s, his famous good looks were long gone. But his wit, his reputation, his deep understanding of human psychology, those things had only become sharper. And so, even as an old man, he commanded attention and attraction, not because he was handsome, but because he had made himself irreplaceable. That is the key. But what if winning the market is actually its own kind of prison? What if love isn't just fleeting? What if it's designed to break you? Now, we descend into the final, darkest part of this philosophy, the love trap. The reason why the pursuit of happiness in love is the greatest lie of all. This is where most men break. The question is, will you be one of them? You've felt it. That gnawing emptiness that creeps in after the initial rush of a new romance is gone. The pointless fights. The slow, dawning horror that this person you thought was your salvation is just another flawed, needy human being. Schopenhauer called this the inevitable collapse of the love delusion, because love isn't designed to make you happy. It is designed to enslave you. The trap is set with a neurological trick. When you fall in love, your brain is flooded with dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. A 2016 Harvard study found that the brain scans of a heartbroken person are identical to those of a heroin addict suffering from withdrawal. This isn't poetry, it's physiology. Love doesn't bond you, it hooks you. And the purpose of a hook isn't to set you free, it's to keep you caught. But the darkest trap of all isn't heartbreak, it's comfort. Most men don't have their lives ruined by a dramatic breakup. Their lives are slowly eroded by settling down. They trade their fire, their ambition, their very identity for the warm, suffocating blanket of a stable relationship. A 2020 study in the Journal of Men's Studies found that men in long-term relationships experience, on average, a 62% drop in testosterone compared to their single counterparts. Their drive is dulled. Their edge is softened. They become domesticated. Schopenhauer warned of this. Marriage is the death of genius. So, is the answer to live as a hermit? The answer is to see the trap and refuse to step in it. The men who win aren't the ones who reject love, but the ones who engage with it on their own terms. They don't look for another person to complete them, because they know completion is an inside job. They can love, but they never need. They can commit, but they never surrender their core purpose. This is the final revelation. Love isn't good or evil. It is a powerful force of nature, a game, and the only way to truly win is to refuse to play by its rules, to love without addiction, to desire without dependency, to walk the razor's edge between connection and freedom. In the end, the greatest love story you will ever live isn't with another person. It's the one you forge in the moments you choose yourself. When you walk right past the mirage of romantic completion and plant your flag in the bedrock of your own sovereignty. Schopenhauer's philosophy wasn't meant to make you a cynic. It was meant to make you free. The game was rigged from the very beginning. But now you hold the rulebook.